Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 2017 comic book pool party here on Geekvolution. We're live this time for the first time, broadcasting this particular program. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and joining me this evening is Sid Part 2. It's Ian.
Oh, look at the depth perception on the camera. Hi, live audience. This is my third Geekvolution live show. I'm excited. Hi.
We are coming to you in 3D. No, it's not 3D, although I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I wouldn't know. Maybe it is 3D. I don't even know.
That'd be really funny for just a review show. Okay, everyone, put on your 3D glasses and just hold the book up to the camera.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or if you had some way to make an image of yourself that was just partially off kilter, so you could pretend like you were in 3D.
Oh,
yeah.
I love it.
Anyway, unfortunately, the Curious Low wasn't able to make it with us. She is back making videos with us, but she wasn't able to make it this evening. So she will hopefully be with us again next month. Ian and I are going to
Oh, and there he goes.
Oh no!
You're good. You're good now.
Can you hear it? Am I good now?
Yeah.
This is what happens sometimes when you make live videos. So anyway, I always say countdown. It's not like a top list. We're just picking our favorite book of each week of last month, and we're going to find out what the comic book, or you folks are going to find out what the comic book industry gifted us last month. We do our pool party. Do I have a party favor? Yeah. We are
forgetting to get something. Dang it.
We're gonna see what the comic industry gifted us last month during our pool party, which we do kind of like a birthday party, and we always begin with our birthday card, which is a book from last month that didn't quite make our week. The best thing we opened, the best comic gift of that week, but just kind of like a nice lead-in kind of thing. And we're gonna go ahead and just get right into it. Thanks for joining us live. If you're watching live, and we might occasionally interact with you a little bit, but this is going to be a little bit less interacty than a lot of our live shows, as we're pretty much just going to go through our favorite books from last month. Ian, I don't know about you, buddy. I had a phenomenal month last month. It was really good.
Things were hitting pretty high for me. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of good issues. And then one really, really awful one, but we'll get to that.
It was so hard. Actually, picking the worst book of last month wasn't the easiest thing. I couldn't find anything that I just absolutely, completely detested. It was more of just a disappointment, really. And so, I mean, we'll get to that after a while. But, man, this was the hardest I've ever had, the hardest month I've had in picking a book for each month. I've got a stack of things that I didn't pick that I will probably at some point go through and just be like, you guys need to read these too. But anyway, Ian, what was your birthday card? What was your card for last month, sir?
That would be Aquaman number 25. Aquaman is not a character that I follow. I'm like most people, I don't really care about Aquaman. If you like him, if he's your character, don't, kill me. He's just not mine, right?
Then why did you buy that book?
Because an artist that I really, really like is on it. And God, this guy is just so good.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Steven Sejic. He's from Croatia. I found out about Steven Sejic from his creator-owned content. He does a comic that is going to be kind of strange to talk about on Geekvolution. He does a comic called Sunstone that's a romantic bondage comic. And so I found him through that, but he's a very, very talented storyteller and an absolutely amazing artist. So when I found out by following him on DeviantArt that he was going to be doing an issue of arc of Aquaman, I decided to add the book for that arc, and it's gorgeous. I just love the art in this. And so there were other really good issues that week for me, but I added this just for the art, and the art did not disappoint whatsoever. This guy just does amazing work. His paneling is great. He's very much a storyteller as an artist. He talked about on his Twitter, I believe, how he doesn't really understand how to do covers because he's such a storyteller in the way he progresses art on the page to tell his story, or to tell either his story or the story that's being written for him, that he doesn't really know how to just sum it all up in one image for a cover. So that's why he doesn't like doing covers, but he loves doing sequential comics. So he's really, really good about that stuff. The story of this issue is kind of whatever. It's kind of like a very typical Aquaman story where it's like, oh, the people of Atlantis don't like Arthur as their king, so they want someone more radical. At least this time it's not Orm. But Aquaman, like, everybody thinks Aquaman is dead, and he is, like, hiding out in this kind of like the slums of Atlantis called the Trench, and he's kind of literally just being underwater Batman. Like, there's this scene where these guys are roughing up some people, and like just a giant school of fish surround everybody, and he's there and beats them up. So
is that the same Trench from the first arc of 52?
No, or what did they call it? Like, they give it a specific name, but the Ninth Tride. Maybe?
Oh, okay.
The Ninth Tride is a socially and literally the lowest quarter of the city-state. So it's just like this giant trench. That's why I got it confused. It's just this giant trench in the middle of the city, and like people are living in the walls of the trench. So it's literally like the slums of Atlantis, which is kind of an interesting idea. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say my only complaint about this, and Sejic did an issue of Suicide Squad 2 where the art was just gorgeous. My only complaint about this is the same one I had for that, which is Mira is on the surface and she has a friend that's like talking to her. I don't really know who it is because I'm not familiar with the character and universe and all that. I'm trying to find like a good look at her. But like his original character, Lisa. Oh, here's a really good look at her. His original character, Lisa, looks exactly like this character drawing. And there's a very similar problem with how he draws Captain Boomerang in the Suicide Squad issue, where it's just like, it looks exactly like his original character, which makes it really weird to see. And this is something that artists do all the time, where they just reuse a character design, but I did find that a bit distracting. So I think that was my only real problem with this. Otherwise, you know, kind of a weak story, gorgeous art, so it was worth it to me.
I want to read some of the comments here that people were leaving as you were talking about that. Divid22 says, I kind of care about Aquaman. DC Stranded says Sunstone is romantic porn. It's true.
Oh, it is, but it's a really good story.
Mind the Gap says you'd be surprised at the number of superhero artists who have a background in erotic art.
Mm-hmm. The very first Wonder Woman artist was known for his bondage comics, and Marsden sought him out personally.
And Dan Torrey, hello Dan Torrey, he's watching with us this evening. Aquaman is love, Aquaman is life. Dan's a massive Aquaman fan.
Well, tell him to go pick up this arc because the art's really pretty.
Yeah, that's not a character I've ever been able to get into real hard either. I like the Jeff Johns stuff okay from 52, and I didn't stay on it. I didn't read it for a long time. I'd like to go back and read some of that at some point. And then, like so many things, I need to read the Peter David run, and I haven't done that. Yeah,
I've heard great things about the Peter David run, and this seems to kind of be getting back to that, not just because Aquaman has long hair, but the character Dolphin is being reintroduced in continuity in here. And that's apparently a Peter David character.
It seems like there's some maybe cool world building there from what you were describing, getting to know some different parts of the city in Atlantis. You always hear about Atlantis, but to actually go there and see what like the class system is like and you know the different sides to it.
Yeah, and there's like
Atlantis for Aquaman should be like Gotham.
Yeah, and there's there's like a criminal syndicate, and they're like, I guess the best way I can think to describe them is like the Davy Jones's crew from the second and third Pirates movies, where they're like humanoid but fish kind of monster-y things, and so like they're the criminals of Atlantis in an interesting way. They're like mutated or whatever. So it's interesting.
Somebody in the comments said that the current Aquaman, it seems like it's kind of for new readers, so maybe it's a decent place to jump in.
Yeah, I just like the whole plot of Aquaman political crisis in Atlantis is just so played out with Aquaman. It's like every story is either there's a political crisis in Atlantis and Aquaman isn't allowed to be king, or there's a misunderstanding that causes the surface world and Atlantis to go to war, or it's both. That seems like every Aquaman story.
I'm going to go ahead and go on to my card for this month, or for last month anyway. I should mention that we are already 2 weeks into this month. Today is Wednesday, and so comics have already come out for half of this month. I've not been to the store yet, so I haven't read anything at all from this month. So there will be some things that come up tonight where the next issue has come out already, and obviously we wouldn't want to spoil those things anyway, but we won't be discussing those things as per usual. Sometimes we are a little bit later on this show. My card for last month is Defenders #1 by Bendis and Marquez, and this is a book that I was kind of looking forward to. I've been reading more of Bendis's street level Marvel stuff lately, and he is absolutely the right and maybe only person to write this book right now. If the goal is to make it a good tie-in to the show without feeling like that's the only reason we're doing it, and Bendis is doing, of course, a phenomenal job of that. This feels like it should have happened already. The book is self-aware enough to almost come out and be like, yeah, I don't know why we didn't put this team together before. These four people, with especially under Bendis, have dealt with each other so much. Of course, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Daredevil ought to have put a team together already. And this feels, in a lot of ways, like a belated culmination of a lot of things Bendis has done in the past. And we don't spend a lot of time going, should we put a team together, or having like a big, moment at the end where they go, you know what we should do? We should make a big team. There's one scene about halfway through the first issue in a bar where Daredevil and Luke Cage are like, and I think Iron Fist is there too, because Jessica Jones is in a hospital, and they're like, we really probably should have done this already, and we've been talking about it forever. And now Diamondback is out. We thought Diamondback was dead. Apparently he's not. Apparently he's been lurking and plotting for all these years. And I don't know how he was supposed to have died. Whenever we do this, whenever we bring back somebody that was supposedly dead, I'll just wait for you to open your cupcake.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was quiet.
No, that was quite loud. Whenever somebody comes back from the dead, and I didn't even know they were dead, a lot of the time I want to go back and find out how they died in the first place, because it'll be a situation a lot of the time where there's no possible way they could have survived, and we just really wanted to use them again. So we either straight up retcon it, pretend like they either were dead in the first place, or we just kind of, sweep it under the rug. It's like, nope, they were alive somehow. And that seems to be kind of what we've done with Diamondback here, which is funny. And Bendis is again, very, very self-aware, knows he's doing that comic book thing. But anyway, so the idea is Diamondback has decided to, as he says, flip the script, and instead of just doing whatever his machinations are, he's gonna go after his foes right away and make them come to him. And so he takes out Jessica Jones and puts her in a hospital. And obviously Luke Cage loses his mind about it, and is going to his friends to help find Diamondback and just beat the ever-living crap out of him. And a lot of fun. There's some decent like street level crime politics, and I listened to an interview with Bendis about this before the book came out, where he talked about how he wanted to kind of get away in this book from your kind of like standard like 40s or 50s street crime stuff, the kind of mob gangster stuff, and update it and deal more with the way crime looks like, the way organized crime looks like in 2017. And so naturally in doing that, he brings in Black Cat, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of a sense of her and a little bit more dimension for her than I have lately. She keeps showing up in things and is fun and conniving, but there's never a lot to her, I feel like, in being like kind of the current Kingpin, even though the Kingpin is back, but he's not currently really being the Kingpin yet. And anyway, I expect a war between them at some point. That really needs to happen. And there's even a little bit of a sense that we're gonna get lots more Kingpin stuff going on. We're doing some good involved stuff in between a lot of these characters' books right now. Luke Cage shows up in a recent issue of Daredevil, and there's a lot of cross-pollination, and we seem to be being smarter than Marvel has been lately with a lot of things about keeping track of where characters are within each other's books, and making it feel like a more
cohesive universe,
living and breathing universe. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I really enjoyed this. I think Bendis has obviously a great voice for all these characters. It's a big deal to see him writing Daredevil again, and I think this is the right time to do that because Daredevil is Mark Waid's Daredevil is close enough in tone to Bendis over Mark Waid's Daredevil that it feels like these two people are the same guy. Although Bendis' Daredevil is a great deal jokier, but he's also with his friends, so arguably he's with the people that he would be joking with were he joking. So anyway, I enjoyed this a lot, and the second issue also did not disappoint. Both of those curiously came out the same month. I don't believe that's supposed to be a twice-a-month series or anything, but I think it just kind of landed that way.
Yeah.
So this is my card from last month.
See, I'm just amazed to find out. And like this, I'm so not a Marvel guy. Again, if you are, that's cool. I like some stuff from Marvel, but it's just not my universe, not my characters. I am so shocked to learn that that has not been a team before, and Defenders, the television show, is what's making that team happen in the comics.
Yeah,
that's kind of hilarious to me.
Yeah, it is, and of course, the only thing that's obligatory about it is the name, because the Defenders is an entirely different thing, and was a team that had Doctor Strange on it, and and Bendis in that interview again talks about how he's going to make it very clear why they're calling it that, but also that the old Defenders are going to show up at some point in this book, and they're going to make he's going to make a big deal out of the fact that yes, this is an entirely different kind of team commandeering that name. So he's doing a great job of making it not feel like just an obligatory commercial thing, even though that is exactly what it is. But it also feels like something that we ought to have had. So it's great. I would rather read this than Avengers right now.
Oh, wow. Shots fired.
And the current Avengers series is pretty good. I was reading it. I have recently dropped it, but I like this just a tad bit more.
Cool.
Let's go ahead and move on. Actually, I'm going to read a couple comments that folks were leaving as I was talking, because we're giving synopses and things. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to interrupt ourselves with comments, so we'll read a few of them after the fact, maybe. Mind the Gap mentions the black costume for Daredevil in that book. Yeah, I should have brought that up. It is kind of strange that between the two books, he seems to be wearing different costumes, and as Mind the Gap says, the only thing you could really chalk it up to is the lighting is different. But yes, he does seem to be wearing two entirely different costumes, and it's not like the Spider-Man on FF thing when FF was going on, where he had his white Fantastic Four costume, because that's the costume Daredevil is wearing when he gets there, and it's not like he suddenly is wearing a different costume because he is on that team. But anyway, Red Letter Until he says he wishes Black Cat would be in Spider-Man stuff again. I mean, I think he does show up, or she does show up in and out, as a bad guy. She's not, yeah, Dan mentions that she's in Slot's run. I mean, that, and I thought Slot was the one that did that to her, and making her the Kingpin and making her a straight up villain again.
When I read that in Venom, I was like, wait, what? Black Cat's the Kingpin? What happened?
And has been for like a couple, 3 or more years now.
Wow.
That's been the status quo for quite a while now. And I like to describe her as like 60s Batman Catwoman, because she's got this entourage, and she's real like slinky, and she kind of just really likes stealing things and being in control of stuff. That's kind of her whole character, it seems like. But there's a place where Diamondback in that first issue, without giving too much away, I hope, goes too far with something in front of her, and it really bothers her, and you see this big gasp from her, and she's been touting herself up as kind of the biggest badass of New York City lately. So it's kind of going to be interesting maybe to see that she's got a line where she crosses that.
Dan says that Black Cat became the Kingpin in Superior Spider-Man, and it was trash. I can't comment on the second part, but it's good to know where it happened in.
Yes, that was a quote, Ian. get into the first week of last month, shall we? And I actually have to mention that I don't have embarrassingly the dates in front of me right now. I'll pull those up. But what was your gift for your present for the first week of June from last month, sir?
This was a surprise grab for me. It's Wonder Woman.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's Wonder Woman Steve Trevor Special #1. And this is a one-shot. It is very much like setting up the possibility of having a series, and it is in very much like the classic line of DC titles that you wouldn't expect to work, but it totally does, because it doesn't say it on the cover, but the title of the story is Wonder Woman's boyfriend Steve Trevor in the River of Lost Years.
What?
It's exactly like Lois Lane, Superman's boyfriend, or Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. So I would totally, based just on this, I would read a Steve Trevor book. I mean, why not, right? It would be fun. And it's pretty like self-aware, and it's having a lot of fun. Like Steve Trevor in the opening scene is being held hostage by a group of guys called Menists, MENISTS, like feminist but menaced. And they have like XY painted on their gear because their XY chromosome. And then like a giant tentacly worm-like beast rips through the wall and is about to eat them all up, and then Wonder Woman has to come and save them. And it's just this really funny conversation between Steve and Wonder Woman about how she has to save them all from a giant wiggling phallus. So it's very self-aware about what it's dealing with. And that's just like the prologue before Steve goes off on a mission. And he meets up with Charlie, Samir, and Chief, who were, of course, in the Wonder Woman movie. And they're on a mission together, and there's like this whole thing with like a child, or with an old woman that's been kidnapped, and this like evil organization. There's like a woman with a whip that's like the bad guy and all this stuff. And it's really just fun. It's neat. It's kind of like a perfect little one and done story that sets itself up so it can have more stuff down the line. There's like this really interesting commentary or line that Steve Trevor's internal monologue had that I found kind of impressive, where it was talking about how he stole paradise because he found it and took Wonder Woman away from her. So he took paradise away from paradise. And he's doing it here again because of this like mystical group that's like immortal children drinking basically from the fountain of youth. And that was just kind of fascinating. And then it all ends with Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor out on a date together. And that's fun. Yeah, it's just a interesting little thing. And it sets up like a cliffhanger so that this could become a series if they ever wanted it to, or they could do another story with it. Even if they don't, I'm okay with that. It was a fun issue.
Can we all agree that would have immediately sold more copies if they had called it something like Wonder Woman's boyfriend, Steve Trevor? Like, I wish that was on the cover. That's hilarious.
It's in the, like, I honestly had to look at the title again before I started talking because I was about to call it Wonder Woman's boyfriend, Steve Trevor. That's like, it says that right in the book, and yeah, they should have just had the guts, the hoofsva to stick to that title. I was gonna say the balls, but since we're talking about a Wonder Woman thing, that seems counterproductive.
See, I thought you were gonna be like, I'm not sure if I can say that on Geefalution, and then you said it. You're like, I was gonna say this, but then you said it, so then that couldn't have been where you're going with that.
Well, that too. There's multiple levels of hesitation in that statement.
Ian, I find there's a lot of subtext in the monthly pool party. There's often a great deal of subtext. So let's a lot of stuff in the comments about other things besides Wonder Woman. A couple of things here and there. People talking about mistakes writers have made in the past on Wonder Woman and things, but not about that specifically. So let's go ahead and move on. My favorite issue from that week, the week of the 7th, since I've now looked up a calendar, was Batman number 24, which has got to be real close, if not my favorite issue of this series so far. One of the most surprising and worthwhile cliffhangers I've read in a long time. Really excited about it, and very often a thing like that, I feel like I can go and give away because we're an issue past it now. There's another issue that's come out, so if you don't want this ruined for you and you're watching live, mute for the next minute. But but at the end of this, Batman proposes to Catwoman. Mm-hmm. And it was shocking, and the way we build to it is absolutely brilliant. Tom King has been doing all this really fascinating, as Ian and I have discussed a lot on this show, like psychological study of Batman, both who Batman is for Tom King and who Batman sees himself as. And the way he describes himself is very often there's a lot of layers to it, and it can be kind of contradictory, and there's a little bit of an unreliable narrator thing going on with Batman some of the time. And here he is opening up very much to Gotham Girl, and everything he says here is not unreliable. This is the absolute pure bare bones. Here is how Batman feels about himself in trying to mentor Gotham Girl, but in a really hesitant kind of way, where he doesn't even know if he should say anything to her in her trying to decide if she should be a superhero, if she should continue the fight against the criminal element. This answers a big question I had and that Ian and I discussed, I think, last show or the show before, which is what would happen with Gotham Girl if she kept using her powers, and what she might decide to do with those moving forward. Because if you've been reading this, you'll recall that Gotham Girl and Gotham, when they use their powers, it takes some life out of them. There's a major payment for their massive Superman godlike powers that they have. And Batman, he is probably best piece of advice, because I feel like he gets more out of this conversation than she does, really. The big piece of advice that he gives her that I think is most useful is, here's a person you should go train with in, I don't remember East Asia or somewhere, I forget what he says. Here's this person you should go train with so that you can learn how to use your powers, or so that you can learn how to fight and not use your powers except for when you really have to, which, I mean, this is such a cohesive piece that everything means something and is connected to other bits of the story we've been reading. So when he says that, he's harkening back to a little bit earlier in the story when she asks Batman, "Why don't you fly?" Because they live in a world of magic and super science. And if he wanted to, he could find a way to fly. And he says, "Life is too short to do things you don't need to do." And then we end the issue with his finally asking Catwoman to marry him, doing a thing that he feels like finally he really needs to do, based on Gotham Girl's. And maybe he was thinking of it already, but I kind of suspect that this really puts him over the edge. This is based on this discussion that they have about happiness and the idea that Batman can never be happy because. But he tries. Yeah, it's really complex, and yet it's really simple all at the same time, right? I love how he breaks this down. The notion that, I mean, I'm kind of just describing this issue now, but I really like this idea with Batman, because everybody on the channel that knows me knows that I'm all about Batman Begins. That's my favorite Batman anything. And Batman is all about fear, and he's all about manipulating the fear in others, but also using fear as a motivator for himself. And here, fear remains also an enemy. So the idea is, if he is he's trying to make himself happy by going against fear, but the problem is that if he stops being afraid, then he's afraid that that makes him insane. because with all the crazy things that happen in Gotham, that he would be a crazy person to not be afraid of all the things that he has to face. I mean, he's really humanized and really opened up here. And the kind of implication there is that a happy Batman is an insane Batman. And then when you think about the yin yang thing, and that the opposite of Batman is the Joker, that's fascinating. Like that's awesome. And so then the idea is that maybe there's a third way that Batman can be happy, which is to let somebody else in that is already part of that world. And he's making a great case for Catwoman could actually be the only one. And I often don't really care for that relationship very much.
Me either.
But he's making a great case for she might actually be like his Lois Lane or something. But then moving forward, I don't know, because I think he could. Because I think Tom King of all people is liable to make this real tragic. So it might be that that's what he thinks right now, but then it doesn't go that way. I can kind of see it going either way right now.
Like the thing that I think is really interesting to talk about is how it's called every epilogue is a prologue, right?
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Both as the epilogue to I Am Bane and to the Button. Like, someone asked Tom King on Twitter, is Batman number 24 going to be about the Button or about I Am Bane? And he says both. Because in the Button, like, say what you will about it, there is a really interesting scene between Bruce Wayne, or Batman, and Thomas Wayne Batman. And Thomas Wayne tells him, I don't want you to be Batman. And if anyone has the perspective on that, it's Thomas Wayne Batman, of course. I don't want you to be Batman. I want you to be happy. And so he's going off to go, reflect on this and everything in every epilogue as a prologue, but also in the way in which this action of proposing to Selina Kyle juxtaposes with what we saw in Rooftops. Because my thing with Batman and Catwoman's relationship is they are two people who are intensely attracted to one another, but never want the same thing. So they, like, anytime they have a relationship, it's instantly toxic. And there's like just a fundamental lack of trust between them. So I think that this is Batman kind of emerging as the mission through Bruce Wayne. So he's like, fine, you want to try to be happy? We'll try to be happy with this character who we know we are doomed to fail in trying to be happy with. And like, I think that Rooftops is a story that really solidified any time they try to have a relationship, it is doomed to fail because one of them cannot always trust the other. No matter how intimate the moment is, they're always kind of suspicious of one another. And I think that is another, just all of its really fascinating layers. And then, of course, as we get into War of Jokes and Riddles, it's all being told as a story from Batman to Catwoman.
Right.
And so it is literally a prelude to War and Jokes and Riddles.
Yeah, and obviously I would have a different read on this if I was reading this whole thing together. I'm having a very difficult time keeping everything in my head and remembering where we've been before. So, like, I'm not looking at this as closely as you have been, and I totally forgot what Rooftops even did with them. So, you're probably absolutely right about that. But I'm kind of looking at this in a vacuum and reading way too many things month to month. So, I am clearly not remotely qualified to talk about this yet at all whatsoever, and probably should have just held the book up and said, "This is really good. You should read it."
Let's like, yes.
let's go ahead and move on then to the week of the 14th. And what was your favorite issue from that week?
Legion of Superheroes Bugs Bunny #1. I love me some Looney Tunes. Steve and I are doing character profiles on Geeky Gentleman. We just did an episode on Bugs Bunny. I love me some Looney Tunes. I don't care at all about the Legion of Superheroes. Like, if there was some big comic event and they killed off the Legion, I'd just be like, oh, okay. But to see Bugs play off the Legion of Superheroes, to see this book be as much a parody of the Legion and just comic book style storytelling in general was really fun for like team dynamics and stuff like that. There's all these editor notes for fourth wall breaks that are just hilarious, and all this just absolutely kooky wackiness. And then there's my favorite joke. So the Legion sends Computo back to Smallville to get Superboy and bring him to the future. and Kabuto goes to Smallville and finds Bugs Bunny and just takes Bugs Bunny to the future. Now, there's no explanation whatsoever for why Bugs Bunny is living in Smallville. And the only explanation I can think of is Dr. Manhattan really messed stuff up. Like, really, really bad. So, yeah, Bugs just interacting with the Legion of Superheroes, just all this silliness is really, really fun to me. I gotta find like they do so many great gags. It's like, then you aren't going anywhere. Oh yes I am. No you're not. No I'm not. Oh yes you are. Well I'm gonna stay right here. Absolutely not. You're leaving right now. Just stuff like that. I love it. It's duck season, rabbit season all over again. They're sitting there looking at Bugs Bunny do all this stuff. They're like, oh my god, he has some kind of reality bending superpowers. And then you get you get some fun panels like Bugs just crosses or dresses up as a Wonder Woman at one point to punch one of the Legionnaires. So that was really cool. I just had a laugh reading this. It was so much fun. This was, I read all the Looney Tunes crossovers. This was probably about the perfect tone for me, where it just really, really, it is Bugs Bunny and it is a parody of the Legion of Superheroes. And I had a lot of fun with that. And again, just cool panels, man. They're just some cool panels. I love that. Bugs Bunny as Superman is something I can never get enough of. My one complaint with this issue, though, is like we get to the end and each of these has had like a backup comic that's like more all ages. And this one has that, but it's just the exact same story again. Like it's chopped down, it's made a lot smaller, but it's literally the exact same plot again. You know, I don't understand why that happened. That seemed a little on the lazy side to me. Like I almost thought it was a reprint at one point, but that's clearly not the case. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. They did a good job of drawing Bugs, who is, an animated character and is designed to be simplistic. They drew him with enough detail that he didn't look really out of place in the Legion. They found a really good artist who could kind of get that just a taste of minimalism with a little bit of flourish for a comic. So that was good. Yeah, just fun book. I don't know. Did you read any of the Looney Tunes crossovers?
I bought half of them. Yeah, one of the books that I would have loved to have used for my card this time, but I really wanted to talk about Defenders, was the Marvin Manhunter issue, which is the one that I was most looking forward to because I thought that was just a genius idea. And and the thing that's most great about this is of the three I read, and I didn't pick that one up that you just talked about, Ian, but of the three that I read, this is the only one that like tries to. The Roadrunner one does a little bit, but this one, more than the other three, tries to be a perfect blend of Looney Tunes and regular DC Universe. Like, it's a serious Martian Manhunter comic, but it's a goofy, hilarious Marvin Martian comic all at the same time. It's really impressive, and they don't change Marvin Martian in any way whatsoever. He just shows up, and he's just like he always is. But it's somewhat of a serious, as weighty story as you could possibly make that, and it cracked me up. I thought it was fantastic.
See, I didn't actually care for that one. I thought that one was probably the worst. Maybe tied with the Jonah Hex Yosemite Sam one, just because that one got, I feel, a little too inappropriate for kids to read. And like, they're
not for kids. I don't care. The Batman, but the Batman Elmer Fudd one clearly is not for kids. Like, are you going to complain that there's blood in
kids? But
are you going to complain there's blood in that comic? Like,
no, not the fact that there's blood. Like it's a really brutal Jonah Hex comic.
I didn't read that one, so I don't know. But I'm just saying these aren't really for kids in the first place, and I think they're
not for kids. But I feel like with Looney Tunes, a kid should be able to read them because it's Looney Tunes. A kid's going to get a hold of them regardless.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Maybe they could have made it clearer on the covers that kids aren't supposed to read certain ones of them. But I mean, like, the Elmer Fudd one is references to Looney Tunes before it's actually Looney Tunes. And
fair
it's
enough,
for
like,
adults
I feel
that
like
grew
that
up
one's
with that,
super
right?
inappropriate for kids the way I felt the Jonah Hex one was.
Sure, I mean, like I said, I didn't read the Jonah Hex one, but I wouldn't hand that one to my kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. That one,
huge problem, but they could have made it clear on the cover who's supposed to read it.
Yeah, I don't know. That one just like threw me off. I was just like, I don't like doing those kind of jokes with Looney Tunes character.
And I
it
imagine
was
I
a
would
good
feel
Jonah Hex
exactly.
story.
I imagine I would feel exactly like you if I read it, but I didn't look at that one. So yeah.
I mean, they make a oral sex joke in reference to Yosemite Sam, and I was just like, oh, I'm not comfortable with that.
I don't read that. Yeah. Okay. All right. No, you win.
Yeah, but I enjoyed most of them. Some of them didn't quite work for me, but like I liked the Wile E. Coyote and Lobo one. That was fun. I really liked the Legion one. Yeah, they've been overall they're pretty good.
Redland Antilles says the Hex one was just off color in general, like even for adult comics, it just felt too inappropriate, not out of place. It sounds like what you're describing. And Dan makes a really good point. People have been wondering this for years now. How long until Marvel does Disney crossovers? We haven't really done that yet, and they've had it for 7 years now. That should have happened by now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd read that. I was thinking about it. You know, we just got this, and I don't know who owns Pink Panther, but I would kill like at least 7 people for a Black Panther Pink Panther crossover.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What was your book, Cap?
7 people. That's how many.
Exactly. At least a minimum of 7 people. Would die in order to deliver me a Black Panther Pink Panther crossover.
But see, that's the thing, and I know you said you didn't really care for it, but like I've wanted this crossover forever. That was very exciting. I didn't have to kill anybody. That was really exciting.
That we know of.
No, that was for something else. That was for something else. It was related to Power Rangers. That's all I'll say. Okay, so my favorite issue for that week, my birthday present, was Dark Days, The Forge #1, which is the lead-in comic for, or one of the, excuse me, I should say, lead-in prelude comics for the next big DC event, which is called Metal, which is maybe the most 90s title, the most 90s edgy, like, Marvel or DC type, especially Marvel, title you could possibly think of, Metal. And when we first found out about this, I really kind of expected it to just be metal in the sense of, yeah, man, it's so metal, and it's literal. It's about actual metals, alien metals, things that are in the Earth core and messing things up, and there's a big giant mystery that goes all the way back to antiquity about metal, and that apparently this has been seeded by Scott Snyder going all the way back at least to Court of the Owls, if not a little bit before. And we find out that one of the metals in question is the reason that the Talons are able to come back from the dead, and it's supposed to be an impossibility, but there's this metal that makes it possible. And so the big mystery is how is that possible, and what exactly is Batman hiding? Because he has something that has to do with all this metal thing, stuff that's in the Forces of Solitude. Apparently, you know how Batman has Batcaves everywhere? He sort of even has a Batcave in the Forces of Solitude. It's not a Batcave, but
I'm so okay with this, because that explains like the one plot hole from I Am Bane, which is like, or not the one plot hole, but like the one thing that made me just scratch my head of how Batman got into the Fortress of Solitude without Superman knowing about it.
Well, only sort of, because the thing is, it's a place that Superman knows about, and it's just a big door with a big keyhole that they no longer have the key for, and they intentionally have made it nigh impossible to get into, so that like Batman would only get into it if he like really, really super needed to, and now he finally does. So he brings in Mr. Miracle to help him get in it, and there's something crazy in there that he's been hiding that even Superman doesn't know what it is. And anyway, I just first of all, I like the art in this a lot. This is several people drawing. So if I can pull up the credits real quick, I'll read them. Capullo is in here, and so is Ramita and Andy Kubert.
Okay.
Oh no, actually, sorry. Capullo's not here yet. I think he's going to be in one of these later down the road. But he actually doesn't work on this particular issue. The annoying thing about this is that, well, two things. First of all, this is a prelude that reads like it should be the first chapter of the actual story. I mean, I can't really imagine getting into metal without knowing the things that I learned reading this. And I had to read this a couple times to really know what I was looking at, because it's involved, and it's, you know, like I said, just the super crazy, out there mystery, and I really like it for its atmosphere and its weighty tone. Like, it really feels like it matters, which it feels like the late 2000s events in DC. Like, it gets very much away from the tone of the 52 events, where it really feels like it's gonna matter. And I'm glad I'm reading this, and it's a combination of things rather than just beating me over the head with how important it is. It is doing that, but it kind of works. It feels a little bit like Blackest Night in that way, except I can tell where we are and there's setting. So, that's good. But anyway, there's a lot of different characters involved right out the gate, including Hal Jordan, who is there's this great bit with the Guardians who tell Hal Jordan, okay, there's this crazy disturbance on Earth. You gotta go deal with this. And he looks at the map and he's like, really? That's where the disturbance is? And it's the Batcave. And he has to go there and start investigating this crazy metal thing. And we've got Hawkman suddenly involved in things again. Like I said, Mr. Miracle is here. And anyway, as I said, or as I was starting to say, the annoying thing about this is there's at least a couple of these before the actual metal event starts, and it's not the kind of thing you just pull on your pull list. You have to know about both of them, and I hate that. I wish we could just make this, at least label it as a series so that you can put it on your pull list once and make sure you get them, because there's nothing indicating real hard at the end of this that there's another one you've got to get before metal starts. And this felt, I mean, obviously metal hasn't started yet, but this felt absolutely essential. So I can only imagine that the next one that I think just came out today is also going to really matter, and I'm going to want to make sure to read it. Sometimes I'm not sure about prologues like this, Ian. Sometimes I feel like these should just be, it's sort of like issue zeros of things, where like, might as well just call it number one, because usually in issue 0 is the first chapter. This reads like a first chapter. This doesn't read like setup. I mean, it is set up in the sense that, we got to start getting the ball rolling. We're establishing the mystery, but that's a first chapter of a thing, right? Like, yeah. It is the occasion for story, and even if that stuff is recapped well,
is this way they get to sell you 2 trades instead of 1, and then they get to sell you another trade where they collect it all in one, like it should have been to begin with.
Yeah, and it's not really playing fair with the readers, because like I can't call it padding because it reads like it matters. It's not like they slapped. I mean, here's the thing. The word metal isn't even on this, and this has got to be confusing to people. What even is this? If I hadn't been looking at articles and stuff, I would have never known.
And like the worst part is, you don't want to look at the articles because so few comic sites won't just like avoid spoilers in articles. Yeah. And that's so annoying. I'm just glad, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad people are enjoying it. It sounds like it's, fun, which is great, but I'm staying as far away from Scott Snyder attached to Batman as I possibly can for the rest of my life.
That's true. I dropped All-Star. I'm so done with that. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I mean, I'm curious because this is apparently stuff that he's been building toward, and I didn't really know about it. I didn't read very much of the weekly Bat books they did. They did the I forget what they're called now, the Batman one and the Batman and Robin one. And I got a few issues into the first one and didn't really care for it. I thought it was too meandery. I thought it should have been a couple of different books because how often it interrupted itself. And I thought that the writing was really inconsistent with those because of the different writers they had on it, and they just didn't have their ducks in a row. The second one was, I guess, better at that, but I still didn't read all that much of it. Anyway, apparently a lot of the seeding for this is in those. And I didn't know about that, and I didn't know that those were really all that important. Yeah, of course. But they felt so throwaway as I was looking at them, So, side note: where is Cassandra Cain? Because she was established, and I haven't seen her since then.
I think she's in Detective still, from what I understand.
Oh no, of course, I forgot about that team. Yeah, because I read that for a while, and then I dropped it, and I forgot she was there. Yeah. Okay, never mind. That's where Cassandra Cain is. Thank you. So, I didn't say it was a hard question.
Do I get a gold star?
You do. Absolutely. I'll say your sticker's in the mail. All right, let's move on now to the week of the 21st. What was your favorite issue for that week, sir?
You're gonna be excited about this one. Silver Surfer.
Oh, yes.
Number 12.
I'm sorry. Thanks, DC Stranded. Yes, Batman Eternal, of course. Yes, I've been telling you to read that forever. I'm glad you finally gave it a shot.
Oh, dude, I am so glad I gave this a shot.
Isn't it wonderful? It's just wonderful.
It is. Like, I got a little nervous when I saw Slott was on it because I've been hearing really bad things from the Spider-Man fans about him.
He essentially is not. He basically is not.
Oh, really?
As far as I can tell, it's very hard to tell if he's how much involved he really is on this because his name's on it, but the Allreds seem to be doing the real legwork. I honestly cannot tell. Both Allreds are here, which tells me that he's not doing much writing.
Gotcha. And this was just, dude. Anytime comics decide to take like a really good look at death and deal with just the process of grieving, I'm always there. This is something I think about a lot, and that's what goes on in this issue. It is a very Doctor Who kind of thing. You mentioned that it has that kind of feel, and I agree, which is great because not watching great Doctor Who on television and the comics aren't very good either. So it's good to get something like that. But yeah, like, what's her name? I've already forgotten.
I'm sorry, I gotta get my head back in this. Dawn Greenwood, yeah.
Dawn's father dies while she's out exploring the universe with Norm, and they don't come back until after the funeral and everything. And she's just stricken with grief, and it's this really fascinating thing about this living sentient planet and all this stuff, and about the idea of like hiding and running away from your grief. Kind of just deals with the stages of death, and then it like has this really neat comic booky thing at one point where the Surfer fights this sentient planet as it goes to try to console her, and it's like, I will yell out for her name, and he's like, I will remove oxygen from the air so that sound cannot carry. And then we just get all these silent word balloons, like these blank word balloons, as they fight each other in complete silence as Dawn actually deals with like her loss over on her own. And that is just beautiful. It's such a great way to establish this in comics, and it looks amazing. Allred really does have a very classic comic book style of drawing. I read it in his Madman, and that was fantastic too. But man, it's just like, it looks like this could have come out anytime in comic book history. Yep. And that makes it so perfect, just how timeless it becomes because of that. And Cap has disappeared.
Sorry about that. I lost my headphones.
Yeah, it's just like this looks absolutely timeless, but it's dealing with things in such a complex way. What I love about this is I can hand this book to literally anyone. I'm like, this girl named Dawn's been hanging out with Silver Surfer.
Yes.
That's all you need to know.
Nearly every issue is a good jumping on point, with the exception of a couple of like 2-issue arcs. But yeah, you pretty much you can just jump right in any place. We are, 2 whole volumes into this, so I'm sure you'll want to go back now and get the rest of it because it all looks like this. It's all Allred.
Allred's got just a very distinct style, and it makes it a lot of fun to read his stuff. I will say there was one thing that kind of made me laugh. So there's this like alien woman thing that's helping Dawn out. And here she is in this panel. She looks like a female Pepe, and that kind of made me laugh. The mean character Pepe. So I was just like, okay, that's cool.
That was probably intentional, I imagine.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, maybe he's making a joke or something. I don't know, but I think it was just one of those weird little accidents of comics. Like, you ever see like the Thor Nicolas Cage?
Huh.
There's this one panel of a Thor comic where just his face looks exactly like Nicolas Cage. It's just like a kind of a distant panel, so they don't put a ton of detail in his face, but just for whatever reason, he just looks like Nick Cage. It's hilarious.
The most impressive thing for me about that book right now is that it has remained consistent in quality and imagination going all the way at the beginning. You'd think at some point they would run out of really wild cosmic ideas, and you wouldn't think you could maintain the heart of a book like this for as long as they have. But a lot of issues are like this, where they're this tug on the heartstrings.
I mean, really?
It's very impressive, and you can call it heavy-handed, and you can even sometimes call it sappy, but it's very much a product of that early 60s Stanley period of comics where we were writing like that, and it's consistent about it. I think it totally works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of, like, it was fun to read, it was great to read, and it also just really got me, man. Just left and right, it really got me. Just the idea of, because, I mean, not to get too personal, but when my father died, I wasn't able to go see him in the hospital because I was going to have a surgery in like another week. And so I couldn't be in a hospital for risk of infection. And so that's like something that's always kind of stuck with me. And so I immediately, I really felt a connection with what Dawn was going through here, of just the idea of, like, I got to be around for spreading his ashes and all that stuff, but just the idea of being gone and not getting to be there with a family member that died is just it is something that really weighs on you, and this handled it really beautifully.
Yeah, and it really nails how fragile a person in that state is, and how every person handles grief very differently. You know, we always talk about the stages of grief, and there's certainly truth to that, but there's this discussion where Silver Surfer wants to handle it in like a real rigid, systematic kind of way, and she just needs whatever she needs right then, and you can't entirely explain it. And yeah, you could go to like because in this sentient planet is able to recreate her father for a period, and the Surfer is not sure if that's healthy or not. And that's a totally fair question to ask. You know, is it healthy right after somebody dies to pretend like they're still alive? And it works as therapy, and she has to do that for the duration she has to do that.
Yeah,
and the Surfer turns out to be kind of wrong about it, but I think there are people with more addictive personalities for whom that would be a really bad idea, and so it's just kind of a case by case.
Well, it's a matter of where, like, yes, it is therapeutic, but the planet itself is too empathetic. It's not letting her deal with her grief. It just keeps wanting to reach out and soothe her, and so they're there for 2 months.
I guess the point I'm making is she's not the problem there. Like that might have been what she needed for a while, but the planet keeps going. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I found that really great. And then I really like how it all connects back to the Surfer, wherein she's like, the one thing you never want is to be held down to a single planet.
Yeah,
and yet we were there for 2 months. You were willing to be for me. That was really sweet, and that's a really good way to explain what it is, and to deal with grief and the addition of new family to this line that this woman has, where she talks about how space is expanding, but it's also eternal, and how that shouldn't make sense. But it's like, but that makes perfect sense. That's the love of a parent for their child. And she goes, that's how I feel about my dad. And she's like, no, dear, a child's love for their parent, that's the nature of time. It is both ageless and never ending. The love you have for them, it was there from the moment you began. And even when they're no longer with you, your love for them goes on and on. And then, like, she talks about how once they're gone, though, you find someone else to share that kind of love with, and that's finding a partner. And that was just really great, really emotional. I'm kind of tearing up talking about it, man. Very heartfelt story. I have no idea how I did not know about this book. I'm so mad at myself for not knowing about this book.
Well, and I think it's really cool and says a lot about this book that you were able to get that emotionally invested in 20 pages, having not read another issue.
Yep. And having never read a single issue of Silver Surfer ever.
Yeah. And I don't want to lay this on too thick because obviously I'm not reading everything, but of the books I'm reading, and I got some 40, 50 books on my pull list, this is absolutely the most romantic book I'm reading. If you like ladies, guys, anybody, if you like a good romance, this is also an excellent book.
Yeah, it's great.
Seems like a thing that should speak to pretty much everybody.
Yeah, I am so happy.
Like, even if you don't like cosmic stuff, I think it's a good read too.
Yeah, I'm so happy I found this. And like the real killer with me, the thing that always seems to happen to me is I find really good books and I'm reading them and like no one else reads them, so they get canceled. Yeah. And so now what I'm really worried about is I'm gonna start reading this and then the all-reds are gonna like leave it and it's just gonna be slaughter, or it's just gonna be like some awful thing replaces it or it gets canned, because that really would be my luck.
Well, the good news, of course, I mean, you have to go back, but this book's 3 or 4 years old now, so I mean, it's had a good run. So if it gets canceled, it's more likely to end than get canceled. I don't know what the numbers are, but it must have been consistent because it's stuck around, and I was surprised it stuck around. I thought we'd get 12 issues of this tops. But the other thing I was going to say is I can't imagine, and I'm with you. I would blow my top if this happened. I can't imagine that this book doesn't just end with this team. Anybody else takes this over, and I will lose it. Like that is not okay. But anyway, it's really cool. That I don't want to overstate this. I'm really glad that you're reading this, because that makes one other person I know that is reading this book, and I think it is the 3rd or 4th best thing I'm reading, and it has remained consistently that way since the very beginning. The only reason it doesn't make my list every month is because I want to talk about other things. That's it. Otherwise, it very easily could wind up best of my week nearly every time, or at least half the time.
That's how I feel about Bombshells too, where I'm like, it's always good. Tom King's Batman is always good, but like, I do have other good books I'm reading that people should know about. So I have to have stricter standards with those things. It has to be a really good issue of Bombshells to make it to this show for me.
You have to hold it to different standards than you hold other things to.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely. Thank you, Cap, for letting me know about this. I'm excited to keep reading it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for giving me a reason to get to talk at all about that issue, because I didn't put it anywhere this time, but it is in my stack of things I would have liked to have made at least a card and think you should also read. I'll go through those really quickly. I also thought you should read this, even though Ian doesn't agree with me. And I also think you should read Ultimates Squared. I keep calling this up Ultimates too. It's Ultimates Squared. Ultimates Squared, number 8, because it's a great character study for Galactus, and and there's a really cool parallel thing going on with Galactus and Ego the Living Planet, and they team up at the end, and it's very exciting. And you should also read Batman number 25, which is the beginning of War of Jokes and Riddles, and you should also read Injustice 2 number 4. I won't even tell you why. Anybody that likes the characters of either Harley Quinn or Damian Wayne should really read this book. And I also think no, I'll talk about that later. Those are the things. Those are the other things I think you should read that I'm not going to get to talk about.
Okay, with just the idea of Galactus and Ego teaming up, you know what I'm reminded of? I'm reminded of the story of the gingerbread man that, like, you know, got to the river and he's like, "You can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man." And then like there's the fox. The fox is like, "Oh, climb on my back and I'll carry you across the river." I feel like that's their relationship, or is this what it should be?
Yeah, it actually surprisingly gives them really similar origins, and they're actually like way more similar than you would ever think they are. They're kind of the same guy in a lot of ways. It's really cool. So anyway, my favorite book for the 3rd week of June was Daredevil number 22. Finally, we're getting to do something I've been waiting for this whole book, which is getting to see Charles Soule write a whole lot of courtroom drama. Because if memory serves, this guy actually is part of the reason he got Daredevil, and it was exciting that he got Daredevil, is because he is a lawyer, and he knows the ins and outs of that world, and we get to see him actually do some courtroom drama. And this raises a really cool, interesting question that I would think would have happened earlier, and maybe it did, and this just, you know, it comes back to it and does it again, maybe better, I don't know. But you think that this would be a thing that we would have done shortly after Civil War, when we decide not to make, or after we get to a point where heroes don't have to register anymore. I guess that wasn't right after, because I guess that stuck for a while. But what this does is, it just as you see in the cover, this actually happens. It's Daredevil in full costume on a witness stand. And the idea is setting a legal precedent for superheroes being able to give testimony in court without having to take their masks off. And there is, which I think is a really cool, interesting thing to explore. And
well, it's funny, DC actually has that. In DC, it's actually an amendment that superheroes are allowed to testify in court without having to take their masks off. It's an amendment to the Constitution.
I don't know they have finally done that. They're kind of talking about that here, like maybe they should do that. And Daredevil ends up getting to set legal precedent. And there's this really cool identity question, an idea raised where at first the judge tells Daredevil, okay, you're taking this massive risk. You're going to go on the witness stand. And if the prosecution asks you to take your mask off, if they convince me that that should happen, I may have to compel you to do that. And he says noted, and he acts like he's prepared to do that if that has to happen. And of course, he's just recently, like, I like the personal stakes here, because he just recently has, as I've talked about before, gotten to a place where people don't know about his identity anymore because of a gift that the Purple Man children gave to him. And he's suddenly, very quickly, put in a position where he might have to unmask again. And and the very first thing that the opposing lawyer comes up and does says, we move for Daredevil to unmask himself. And so so they take a recess and they talk about it, and this very interesting idea is raised from the other side, I think, which is or maybe it says, I forget, but the idea is raised that, well, wait a minute, Daredevil is not, because the idea is witnessing anonymously. And they bring up this notion that, well, wait, Daredevil's not anonymous. We know who he is. We don't know who the man is behind the mask, but Daredevil is an entity that everybody is familiar with. And here's all these times he saved the city, and here's all these great things he's done for us. And he has a reputation, and he's well known and understood who he is and what he's about. So maybe the question isn't who's under the mask. Maybe what we really should be dealing with is whether or not the person sitting here is actually Daredevil. And so he has to prove that he's really Daredevil, because he's just a guy wearing a costume. And all the ways in which he proves it is really fun, where, like, he tells the opposition lawyer like what exactly he had for lunch, and the guy talks about the various ways that he might have been able to figure that out, so he does it in different ways. The one thing I don't like about this issue, though, is the way he ultimately is able to prove his identity, which is very conveniently some guys with guns break in and he fights them and then proves that he's Daredevil. And that was going a little too far for me. That was a little too convenient. But even with that, I thought it was just a really smart courtroom drama and kind of study of identity with superhero fiction, and it was familiar and yet fresh at the same time. You know, it was something I hadn't exactly quite seen, even though I've seen a lot of courtroom drama in superhero fiction, and I want to see Matt Murdock in the courtroom as much as possible. It was kind of fun doing that real old school. No, I'm not Matt Murdock, but he sent me here. Kind of thing. And anyway, it's a great read. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, totally. You make it sound really tempting, but right now I am in such a rock and a hard place with Soule as a writer, because he did the Poe Dameron book, which really ended up disappointing me.
And Darth Vader is terrible.
I wouldn't even go so far as to say terrible. I would say
it's terrible.
I made this point during my show today. Darth Vader, the first 3 issues are like a really solid Darth Vader video game. Because it's like, go get your lightsaber. I put you on this planet. Go get a spaceship. Beats up people, gets a spaceship. Go to this place. Find out where to find a Jedi, but beat up the people that are there. Beats up the people that are there, finds out where to find a Jedi. 3rd issue, goes to find a Jedi, has to get through a bunch of death traps. It's totally a video game plot, and it's just not particularly good as a comic.
I just couldn't get on board with the premise, man. Like, it was built on such a faulty premise. Okay, if you need, I know we're getting off topic, but it's still comic book. If you need a Jedi's lightsaber that bad, Darth Sidious, why didn't you have him steal any of the Jedis you just murdered? Their lightsaber.
That was the whole point. That was the whole point.
What do you mean?
That was the one thing I liked about it. The whole point was you have to take it. You have to win it.
Okay.
It's about.
I only read the first issue, and
Well,
I just couldn't get on
that
board
was
with
that
that.
was the whole point.
But,
given in the issue is he could have given him anybody. He could have given him Yoda's lightsaber, but the point was he had to take it by force. He had to enforce his power over the lightsaber.
right, but he killed some Jedis himself too, right?
No.
No.
Oh well, I mean the Padawans.
Well, right, but I can see why that wouldn't count. I thought there was at least one of them there that he actually had to kill. Maybe I'm not remembering that right. I don't go back to those movies, so I don't know. But
no, like the whole point is like this. It's a very disturbing kind of metaphor about just like dominating something, because like apparently the crystals are alive now in continuity or whatever.
Yeah, that was weird. You have to torture them, and that's what makes them go red because they're in constant pain.
Yeah, and like whatever with that stuff. Just like the one thing I like in the book so far is Sidious. Too bad he's only been in one issue. But yeah, so I'm like really on a weird place with Soul, and I don't know if I really want to give him a chance with anything.
No, here's the thing though. They're just not giving him the right material some of the time. I mean, he's right for Daredevil in a way he's not right for some other characters. And read past the first arc, because also I think Soul has. Pardon me. I think Soul has some growing pains with things. Like I think he has to really get into a thing. Like he has to find his footing. He's very much like reading a bad first season of TV that gets really, really great. And at least his Daredevil is that way. So I don't know. Like get past the first arc.
Okay.
And
I think later Antilles is telling me that Anakin did kill at least 2 Jedi Masters.
So why wasn't he told to steal one of their lightsabers? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. I don't care. I really don't care at this point. I'm just reading Darth Vader at this point because I'm like, okay, so why did we cancel Gillen's run?
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at. I stopped reading out of the first issue. I just didn't care for it, and I don't like that art either.
Yeah. All right. Mind if I go ahead and go on?
Yeah, although I gotta ask you, what do you think of that art?
It's just kind of passable comic art to me.
Oh, okay.
You know, like I tend not to say much about art, which is bad. I tend not to say much about art unless it's like really good or really bad. I'm like really bad at just giving an artist their due about this is passable art.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I just know that you're such an art guy that if a story's not great, you can still like a thing even as long as the art is good. And so since the story's not great, I was just wondering what you thought of the art. But anyway, all right, what is your favorite book for the last week of last month, Ian?
Batman Elmer Fudd, #1.
Hey, that's mine as well. Yay! It's so good. It's so good. It's great. It's
so funny.
It's incredibly clever. It's brilliant. Go right ahead.
I described like the opening monologue to my mom and in my best Elmer Fudd voice, and she just cracked up at that line. Sometimes Dwayne comes down so hard you forget the last time you would lie. And she just lost it. Oh my God. It was the perfect thing to do. It was so tongue-in-cheek. It was so funny. And this one, yeah, it's not really for kids, but I wouldn't feel like you wouldn't feel bad if Jason was reading this. Like if you walked in the room and Jason was reading this, right?
I don't know. It gets a little violent.
A little, but not anything really for comic book standards, right? Like I went through it and like you see blood, but it's after the fact. You see like gunshots. Yeah, there's only like one or two times where you actually see hits connecting.
You're totally right. While I was reading it, I found myself going, this isn't really something I would hand Jason, but now that I'm looking back on it, it's not as violent as I remember it. I don't know.
I mean, it's got like violence in implication, but like
it's what your imagination does with it.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, you're right. No, and you're fine to challenge me on that because I didn't read the one that you were like, oh God.
Well, to get back to Jonah Hex,
but Jason has. I gotta say this real fast. Weirdly, okay, so I had a surreal moment yesterday because I sat down and I read this comic. And then I walk upstairs, and I kid you not, my kids and my wife are watching Looney Tunes cartoons. And they never are just sitting around watching Looney Tunes cartoons. And we have this really cool like Looney Tunes timeline book, this hardcover, and Sarah had that open and Jason was looking through it, and I was like, when did it suddenly become a Looney Tunes party in my living room when I just happened to be reading this book? So he's been on a Looney Tunes kick lately, apparently, and if Jason did happen to read this, I'm sure he'd appreciate all the references and think they were very clever.
Yeah. And that was one thing I was very entertained by. Just the idea of doing a noir style monologue with Elmer Fudd's voice. Like, I so want someone to turn this into a motion comic just so I can hear Elmer Fudd say these lines. I would kill at least 12 people for that.
Yeah, it would be great if they got some of the voice artists that are currently doing those characters to come in.
It'd be so much fun. Like, even, you know, like if you follow DC on Twitter, they've been doing these really neat ads for some of the comics where they'll like slightly animate some of the art. Like the Batman Swamp Thing issue had a really cool sequence where there's that page where Batman like tackles Kite Man in the air to interrogate him. And like they did like kind of an animation of that by just, you know, manipulating the layers of the art, which was really cool. I would love to see something similar done to that. Like if they just got the voice actor or a voice actor for Elmer Fudd and did the opening page, that would be so amazing just for as an ad for this. This sold out. It got a second printing, which is just fantastic news for Tom King.
He's really popular right now, and it's the weirdest thing to ask him to do. And I heard an interview with him where he was like, "Yeah, that wasn't my idea. They handed me this, and we're like, you gotta find a way to put Batman and Elmer Fudd together." And he goes, "Really? All right." And he's such a good writer. He can just take a thing like that he didn't even want to write in the first place and make it look like the most genius idea. How about the whole bit about to everything there is a season? That's brilliant.
Oh my God, I cracked up. Like I was just reading this out loud in my break room at work because like everyone saw the cover, like, oh my God, that looks ridiculous. I'm like, oh, it is. Everything has a season. Duck season, Wabbit season. Then one day you woke up and you realize the season is yours.
But as I'm reading it, I feel like it's some of the best like noir crime drama Batman I've read in a while.
Oh, definitely, yeah, of course. I mean, no one does it anymore. Like it's been a while since we had a good, you know, long Halloween style Batman story.
Right. Yeah. And obviously King can do that kind of thing too. I mean, that's not what his Batman really has been so far. And it was really cool to see him kind of take on that, you know, I hesitate to say Jeff Loeb type Batman, but I guess that's sort of what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this reads like just the perfect noir crime Batman story, but it's hilarious because it's Elmer Fudd. It's weird because
he puts the entire he puts the entire Warner Brothers lineup, or most of them, just in a bar. He just takes he just makes them all humans, puts them all in a bar, and they're really funny.
Yep, pretty much. It's just a really solid book, and it was a lot of fun, and it's just ridiculous. I had too much fun looking at this, man.
Nathan Sider in the comments just wrote Robin season. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, the backup. Oh my God, I cracked up at the backup because I don't think I'll ever get tired of duck season, rabbit season as a bit. I don't like they do it all the time, and it's always funny. Every time Daffy gets blasted, I lose it, and to see Batman get blasted, to see Batman be the loser is so perfect. Tom King has just an obsession with having Batman get demolished in fights. It's happened in like every arc. He has had Batman just have his stuff wrecked to the point where this man should never get up again. But it does. And they even found a way to work it in with the Batman Elmer Fudd story where Batman just got blasted in the face with the shotgun a bunch of times. And it is really funny to like keep getting where he's trying to reason with Elmer, and Elmer just keeps blasting him because bugs keep saying bat season. That was really good. And then the Robin season gag. Oh, I love it. Yeah,
it's one of those few times where I can't complain about the dialogue being being written out exactly because it's Elmer Fudd. You have to do it that way. Like sometimes I'm irritated by phonetic dialogue because it's hard to read. And some of these words, it took me a minute to figure out what exactly they were supposed to be. It's Elmer Fudd. You have to do it that way. And I would argue it's hard to tell how much of a comedy it's intended to be unless you have that. I think you have to have that.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't play the same without that writing. See, you and I differ on that. I love phonetic dialogue. I think it's really fun, really immersive.
I'm a prude about it. I can't handle it. I don't like it. I was some of it's how I was taught.
Gotcha.
I had that beaten into me when I was in college. And I don't, and I've warmed up to some of it. It just depends on what it is, but I take it real case by case now.
Gotcha. I'm always a big fan of it. I always find it a little more immersive. But there have been times, I agree, where it does get distracting and I don't know what word I'm looking at, and then you're like kind of pulled out of the story or whatever. But I tend to be more of a fan of it because I think like the very first story that I ever heard and that made me want to like write or tell stories was Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, and that starts off with a guy telling a story and he kind of like flubs over his words and says things kind of wrong, and it just sounds very conversational, and that just always stuck in my head.
Something else I got to mention real fast is I love that Marvin Martian is just a crazy guy sitting in the bar talking about his aluminum paper space modulator. It's just this nut job going, my aluminum paper. I'm like, that's fantastic.
Yeah, all the Looney Tunes characters are really funny in that. I got a kick out of seeing all of them. And he did the Porky gag. I always love that gag with Porky where he can't get a word out, so he just picks a synonym. That's always the funniest thing to me.
Yeah, and he intentionally makes it a thing where it's not even a word that's like really complicated, so he goes to the easier word. Like, they're both really simple words.
Yeah, I always love that. I always love Porky. Just random little thing. There's this really old, like, never supposed to air cartoon of Porky Pig hammering a nail, and he accidentally hits his thumb. And then he goes, son of a gun. And he looks at the camera and goes, you thought I was going to say son of a, didn't you? And then it's over. And so I always love that joke with Porky. It's always so much
fun. Nathan Snyder says it's weird how Looney Tunes sometimes uses the archetypes we're used to with the characters and yet find clever, funny stuff to work with it. Yeah, Mind the Gap. It's actually not an arc. It's just a one shot. And they've been doing a lot of these kinds of crossovers lately with different things where they'll just put out like a single issue.
Yeah, they did that with the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but I just didn't have any interest.
Right. The only one of those I bought was the Scooby. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The Green Lantern crossover with Space Ghost, and I think it was Green Lantern.
Yeah,
it was just okay. I mean, it was fun to see. It was fun to see that art again with Space Ghost because it looks like that.
I'll say the same thing.
Like that brilliant comic series.
I'll say the same thing. I keep going to with that. I would have read that if it was Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, Space Ghost, but I won't read if it's just Space Ghost, Space Ghost.
Me too. Yeah, but like I love that. I love that miniseries we got in the late '90s where we did Serious Space Ghost. It was brilliant, and I would love to see more of that. It'd be great. But yeah, if you get Alex Ross come back, it'd be great. So let's move on now to our gift return. We're going to talk about, obviously, Ian and I both had the same things for that last week. We're going to talk about a book that we would most like to send back to the store because we just didn't care for it very much. We wish we hung on to our receipts so we could take these books back. And Ian, what is your gift return?
My gift return, I actually posted a clip of my comic review show when I was talking about this because I hated this book so much, I decided to rip the cover in half. And that's Secret Empire #5.
Okay, hold on. Can I stop you for just a second?
Sure.
Because my gift return this month is Secret Empire #4. So can we just say this whole thing, this whole crossover event, not real great in the month of June.
Yeah.
Did you like 4? Tell me you weren't like 4 is great, but 5 is terrible.
No, at this point, I'm just disgusted by this. Like, okay, so like every comic crossover
And I put
has...
the first issue. I put the first issue in one of my weeks, and Ian was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm not happy with it anymore. I'm so done with this. Like,
yeah. So like, there's this thing with comic book crossovers that we all kind of just accept when like a character acts completely out of character for the sake of the story that the writer is telling. Like, you know, Civil War, oh, that character would never take this side in this battle. That's stupid. Da, 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 da. But it's whatever. It's for the event, so fine. Okay, you can't do that with Secret Empire because when you make a character decide to be on Cap's side, they're deciding to be a fascist. So both Thor and Frank Castle are completely irredeemable monsters at this point because they're both cognizant of their actions and support a government that destroyed a city of its own civilians to prove a point and is running a concentration camp. I don't care what reason Thor has. Oh, Cap picked up Mjolnir. That is wrong, Thor. You are evil now, Thor. You are evil. And, you know, Frank Castle, obviously not a moral paragon to look up to, but he's had one consistent thing no matter how you feel about him, and that's he doesn't like innocent people being hurt. Captain America is running a concentration camp. It's awful.
and you're never gonna. I mean, I'll keep an open mind because I've bought this many, so I guess I'll finish buying it. But you can't begin to make a fascist Captain America picking up Thor's hammer make any sense. Like it's never gonna make sense.
Oh, it's stupid. It's
right?
just.
Is that ever gonna make sense?
No. That
what at that point I don't know what worthiness even means exactly. I mean, we know some of what made Thor worthy in the first place, and it's not those ideals. So I don't really get it. But unless it's just supposed to be, well, he's still selfless. He's just going about it the wrong way. I don't understand. But then I don't entirely get the worthiness thing anymore anyway. So I don't know.
It's just hideous. Like they dedicate a whole scene of Thor praying to Odin and saying, "Well, he picked up Mjolnir, so I guess I should listen to him, even though he's, you know, blatantly murdering people." No, Thor, that's not like that's an appeal to faith as just like from a philosophical perspective. That's an appeal to faith. That's, oh, well, my faith says this, so that means it's right. And that is a logical fallacy. And that's stupid. And like, if your faith says that, then your faith is wrong. That's like, I'm never going to be okay with someone that commits genocide. I'm sorry. And it's just absolutely disgusting. And I'm sure I'm going to get people like, eventually people will try to defend this and go, oh, well, Cap didn't tell him to level the city. That was, he gave the authority to Zemo or whatever. I'm like, he's the leader of this country right now in this comic. He is responsible for the actions of his surrogates. Captain America, brainwashed or whatever, is responsible for everything that's going on in this. And Spencer's trying to be so clever with his politics and all that stuff. And, you know, it's funny. I hear people say stuff like, oh, keep your politics out of comics. And I always disagree with that. Here's my caveat. Keep your politics out of comics if you don't understand your own politics. Because this has just gotten to the point where it's spitting on the characters to tell a story that's not even worthwhile because it doesn't think through its own implications, which is ridiculous. I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm probably, you know, there are more important things in the world to spend your money on, but I would really like to get a Kickstarter together to like send Nick Spencer copies of Denny O'Neil's Wonder Woman, because it's the exact same problem of someone that didn't think through the implications of what they were writing, but did so with the best intentions in the world. So like there are more important things to spend your money on, but that would be a pretty good, you know, spit in the face of Nick Spencer right now, because he's defending his work up and down, and he just needs to stop. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk for a second about the previous issue, which I also which I didn't like and thought was the worst thing I read last month. And I read 5, but I was okay. So the reason that I picked this was because I got so uninvested that my eyes glazed over, and I was having a hard time remembering any of the things I was reading. So I have read number 5, but I don't remember what happened in it really because I wasn't invested anymore, and I kind of just don't want this to be a thing anymore. I have said before, and I defended the idea to Ian a couple of times. We've had this argument. To the degree of saying that this is not actually really Captain America because we have reset things with the sentient cosmic cube so that Captain America's history is different. And if you were raised differently, arguably you might turn into a different kind of person. And it is possible for any person to have the kind of environment that would get them to the place Captain America is, arguably. Maybe that can happen. Okay, so even if this if, as I've said before, if this was just a what if comic or like an Elseworlds or something, and we just said what if Captain America was raised by the other side, if we kind of did like a Red Sun thing with it, that's an interesting premise and I think is worth exploring outside of continuity. The problem with this is either a reset button happens and most of this stuff ends up not really mattering that much, or B, a slight partial reset button is pushed, which is more what it seems like we're going to have to do now, where Captain America gets turned back into regular Captain America, but everything that happened in this counts, and that is so obnoxiously convoluted, I can't get my head around it, and I'm not okay with it. This story could only be enjoyable if you just ignore the unfortunate ending where this has to not matter and read it as if it was a what-if story. We're past that now. Because what we've done with this at this point is turned it into a thing where every event and every major thing with all these 250 characters all matters, and we're treating it like the biggest, most important thing that ever happened. So however you slice it, he's going to try to end this in such a way where moving forward, everybody remembers it and it matters, because otherwise I do not buy the pages upon pages upon pages that I had to read of Ultron / Hank Pym just whining and whining about all the horrible things that have happened to him related to every major event. I was so exhausted when I got to the end of that I just didn't even want to read this anymore, because we're in a place where you have to have read like everything to even know what anybody is talking about, and some of them are sort of out of character, and they're unlikable, and I just don't care. And that's where I'm at with this book now. And so when I thought I was just reading a what if story that is in continuity but will turn out to be a what if story, I was more okay with it. And now he's just like punching me in the face with how much this is supposed to matter. Like, he's treating this like the culmination of everything we've ever had. The entire
Marvel universe, right?
Which will make it so much worse if the first thing happens and it is a complete reset button. You really can't do that now, and that's the only way I can even begin to enjoy this. But again, we're past that because of all of the millions of pages I had to what felt like a million. This is real overwritten, right? I mean, like...
Yeah, and like, it's really expensive. Like, again, I tore this in half. That was a really good way to spend $4. I'm like...
$5. $5.
I'm considering having like a...
No, they are $4. Okay, you know what? I will give Marvel that. These are somewhat oversized and they're only charging $4. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll give them that. But it's overwritten, so they shouldn't charge me for those pages, because it shouldn't have to be that long.
Well, at the same time, other stuff like this. Like, see, I ripped the cover, but guess what? They just give you the cover again on the second page, like on the first page.
Well then, you know, I just rip that off, and when you put it in your when you put it in your box, you'll never even know that you did that. See, look, now it's just a comic book.
Yay.
See, look, he's like, no, I hate it so much, I'm going to do it again.
The cover again. It's that bad. Yeah, it totally deserves it.
Here's the thing. I enjoy the notion of it, like, because issue 2 and 3 were okay to me. Like, I kind of enjoyed living in this Hydra-led world and seeing where everybody ended up and how much of the culture was able to stay the same, but how much of it changed. And, like, all of that was kind of interesting to me. And if we did that between a few different books, it might be worth reading. Like, I'm actually advocating for side things, I guess, with this, if we were just exploring that and it was sort of a what if thing, kind of like Flashpoint. And the reason I say that is because within just the context of these oversized issues, God, this is just too many people to keep track of. And I'm sick of every Marvel event having to be every single character you've ever heard of in Marvel that is currently alive. Why can't it be like just, you know, the ones that matter for the story?
Well, I also think that like the reason that it's not crossing over into every book right now is the other writers are probably like, no, keep me the hell away from that. I don't want my name 10 miles near that thing.
Now, to be fair, it probably would have been way too risky to try to make the entire Marvel universe a Hydra-led universe like this, even if we go back, especially because we just did that with Secret Wars not a year and a half ago, right? Like, it would be a real mistake to shut down all the lines and do the Secret Wars thing again, but with Hydra. It also would feel so cynical and relentless and pessimistic with every single book. We can't have that. So that would have been a big mistake. When you go back and look at Uncanny Avengers, we did a future that they get to that the rest of the books aren't covering, because we knew at some point that future would be written over and we would bring those characters back. But they grew and learned things and became new and became different people. And when they came back, they took all those experiences with them and it informed them. And I didn't feel like it was a waste of time. And even if this isn't a waste of time in that way, I'll be real surprised if I don't feel like it is by the end. I'm really not liking this at all right now.
Yeah, it's awful. Thanos made a great point. It's like, the reason they have two covers is so you can rip the cover but still see the cover. And you know,
it's really weird because I don't think I've ever seen that. But I can't think of a time I've ever seen that where you take a cover off and basically the same cover is just right behind it. Yeah, and it's odd that it's there with one thing you ever decided to rip apart. I just think that's hilarious.
Yeah. Let me jump on what you were just talking about with like the whole Secret Wars universe change thing. That's the first time Marvel's ever done like a company-wide reboot on any level.
It wasn't even a reboot.
Yeah, but like they just did it, and now they're gonna have to deal with this crap. Like, it's like they restart the universe, and now you have to deal with this like stain again. I brought up Denny O'Neil's Wonder Woman, which if you ask anyone that's a fan of Wonder Woman, they'll tell you the worst Wonder Woman run is Denny O'Neil's, and like Denny O'Neil has even disowned that run. It is going to go down in history as like one of those infamous comic book stories. We're going to get like Denny O'Neil's Wonder Woman, Lois Lane turns black for a day, Secret Empire. This is going to be on that list, I swear. And the funny thing is, like that is really like all three of these are symptomatic of the same problem, where we have a writer who has quote unquote good intentions, who has like a certain political view that they want to express, but they don't really think it through enough, and then they let that stomp on the character, and that is exactly what's happening here. And it's really just sad. Like, you need to have a certain level of respect for the character, and you know, Nick Spencer tried to show stuff in his early run to like indicate, hey, it's just going to be another crazy continuity thing with Captain America like we've had for years and years. This is very much like he's trying to say it's just the same thing. It's not. It's insulting to the character. The other stuff may have been stupid, but at least it wasn't insulting. This is.
Yet again, I don't even have to go that far. I just don't think it's I just don't think it's very good. I think it's poorly paced. I think it's a different series every issue. I think tonally it's all over the place. And like I get scope, okay? I get that, like, we're from different characters and teams' perspectives, and so it tonally jumps in that way, but it feels meandery, and like I said, it's just real padded and overwritten, and I don't feel like it's... I think it's kind of self-indulgent. I'll go that far. I think it's expecting me to care without doing the things a narrative needs to do to make me invested in its characters and care. I'm supposed to care because it's Captain America, but he's not Captain America. He's a different guy, and I don't know that. I still disagree with you when you say that that's inherently disrespectful to the character, depending on what you did with it. But I don't care. So like that's no good.
I mean, you know, I was with this book for a long time. I was, you know, Sam Wilson, Captain America, and the early Steve Rogers stuff was some of my favorite books for a long time last year. I've been on both sides of this, but at this point, it's just crossed a line, and there's a fundamental in comic books. You need to have a respect for the character, and I just don't see it anymore. There's no way you can convince me that Nick Spencer has respect for Captain America outside, because if he did, he wouldn't do this to that character. People have brought this up, and I do think it's an important thing. What would Jack Kirby do if he was reading this? Like, how would Jack Kirby react to seeing this? I mean, I don't mean to have the same
argument, but I don't think it's fair to say that until you get to the end of the book. But I just don't think it's a very good book at this point.
Yeah. So that's an awful book. I'm considering, like, once it's all done, maybe putting it in a big pile and having a comic book bonfire. I don't know.
Yeah, I would never do a thing like that. But...
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not happy with it, though. That much is very certain.
We go on now to our wrapping paper for last month. We're going to pick our favorite covers. And Ian, what was your wrapping paper cover for last month?
I mentioned, like, I spoiled it, but yeah, it's Kingpin. I was a little confused by the end of this book, but that is such a cool cover. The life and crime.
I almost picked that.
Fisk. Yeah, I love it. It's cool. This just looks really, really cool. It's a really neat cover. Honestly, they should have opened with this cover. That would have made me buy it even more.
Yeah,
like, this had been the first issue. Woo! I would have grabbed that up in a second. Great cover. I don't quite understand this, like, story. It ends, like, I didn't realize this was the end of the series.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I would have almost picked that as my worst book for last month if it weren't for Secret Empire, just because it's not anybody's fault. It's just us, which is why I didn't do it. But it's a sudden. It's a sudden ending, and the reason is because it didn't sell. It was supposed to be a monthly, and it didn't sell, so they capped it off at 5. And whenever they do that, they pretend like it was a miniseries all along. So they'll go in and it'll say 5 of 5. No, it wasn't a miniseries until just now. Okay. And they've done that with a couple of things recently. Yeah, and that's what happened there. So, no, it wasn't supposed to end there, and I don't think anything was altered about it at all. As the ending of that. So yeah, it's abrupt because they canceled it and pretended it was a miniseries.
That's annoying. But yeah, I was.
They did the same thing to Darth Maul. They're doing the same thing to Darth Maul.
Oh, really?
Monthly, and as far as I understand it, and get this, okay, so, and it's also conveniently 5 issues. Darth Maul ends at 5. I don't know if you're still reading that. I am too. And Comixology, their blurb for it, it doesn't sound like the last issue. It's not like the epic conclusion or anything. It's just a one sentence of the next thing Darth Maul is going off and doing. And it's very clear that it was not supposed to be the end of that series.
Oh, man. It's weird.
I guess I'm wrong. Well, according to Connor, I'm wrong. Connor says it was always a mini. Okay, well, the Comixology might have just made that weird, but I guess we'll see what that looks like at the end of it. But I thought that was supposed to be a monthly. I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I did not.
Anyway,
I didn't like the fact that it just ended, but man, that's still a really cool cover.
It is.
I would read that book. If they wanted to try a Kingpin book again and just made this the cover, I'd read that. It's solid.
It's a bummer because it was a really good book.
It was really fascinating, and it was just like, it really felt like reading or watching like a mob movie kind of thing. Like, this is the book that you hand to Martin Scorsese on an airplane and say, hey, you should make a Marvel movie.
Sure, except we've already got great Kingpin. I guess he could have his own thing. I guess Vincent D'Onofrio could have his own thing.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it feels very much like, kind of a Goodfellas vibe to it, where it's just, she keeps getting in deeper and deeper. I really enjoyed that, and this cover perfectly summed it all up for me. I was really, really excited for the next issue. I'm like, okay, I don't quite understand anything, but it'll be cool to read the next issue and see. Nope! Sorry.
I'm glad you picked that, Ian, because I decided not to for whatever reason, and otherwise I didn't see a lot of really great covers for last month. I do really like the Daredevil cover where he's sitting on the witness stand, but because I couldn't land on anything, I decided to default to what I tend to default to, which is somebody fighting a dinosaur. So I went with
that one.
Venom fighting a dinosaur, because I'm a sucker for this. If I didn't already have this on my pull list and I saw it, I would buy it because there is a superhero fighting a dinosaur on the cover, and I think I accidentally collect those. It seems like if there's a superhero fighting a dinosaur on the cover, I end up buying it. And this issue was fun. I think this series is maybe starting to lose its way a little bit. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly enjoying Stegron the Dinosaur Man. So anyway,
like seriously, I almost picked that too, and I'm did the review of Venom number 152 today, and I was like,
don't tell me anything. I haven't read it yet.
Well, like it's just like the same thing. Like, so I read this series because I thought it was a really interesting breakdown of abusive relationships done with superheroes and all that stuff. But now Venom's fighting dinosaur people. And I don't know what this is anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. And if it was just an interlude or something, that's okay. But we just got to a new status quo where Eddie Brock has taken back over, and ever since Eddie Brock, I say ever since, it's been a couple issues. Eddie Brock took back over. I'm very confused about what the Clintar is and what it's doing, and it seems like an entirely different character. And that doesn't seem justified yet by just the fact that Eddie Brock is back in charge. So I'm lost. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, they get into that a bit in 152.
That's good. But is it? Did you buy it? Is it working? No.
It's I want to see where they go with it. It is like a satisfying explanation, but I want more. I want to see how this like is affecting the symbiote.
Yeah.
But like I'm just more like the tonal shift. Would you agree with me that it feels like a completely new creative team has come on that book?
Yeah, and it's not.
I know.
It's so weird.
Weird. That's so bizarre. Where it's like, okay, here's this really interesting stuff with like crime drama and the symbiote and this really interesting subtext. Now dinosaur people. Wait. Someone.
I mean, okay, so maybe you've proven that you got range, but nobody asked for that proof. We're good. Write the book you were writing.
Right? It's just like, it feels like Eddie Brock has hijacked this book, and now it's become something really weird, and I don't...
Yeah, but what's weird is Eddie Brock could get back in the Venom suit, and the book stay exactly what it was. When I think Eddie Brock, I don't 3 issues later think, fighting the T-Rex.
Right? It just came completely out of left field, and I was like, oh.
It's not bad. I just feel like I walked into the wrong movie theater, but there's another movie showing with the same character in a different genre.
Oh my god, yes. Oh, that's what happened.
But it's not bad or anything. It's just that's not what I gotta adjust my expectations a little bit.
It's so bizarre, yeah. It's not like it's awful. It's just like, this isn't the Venom comic I signed up for.
Here's the thing. It's a little bit like Circle of 4. A little bit. In that, with Remender's Venom, where all of a sudden we got all this occult stuff thrown in. You know what the difference is? We didn't have a new status quo, A. And B, Circle of 4 was so outside of what that book had been that they felt the need to make it a .1 miniseries inside of the main series. This is just the next arc.
It would be what you call kind of like awkward storytelling. Like I feel like they got a letter from the editors.
Yeah,
like, hey,
sure.
it's too dark. Make it like a little more, lighthearted comic book kind of stuff. Okay.
Right, and their Batman Returns to Batman Forever is Venom fighting a T-Rex.
Exactly. It is really jarring. But like, yeah, I agree. That was a cool cover. I would have picked that up just for the cover as well. I'm just concerned about the direction. I almost picked that as my cover. It's funny that you almost picked Kingpin and I almost picked that. That's pretty good.
That's so weird, yeah. Ian, what would you say is your PS de resistance from last month, sir?
I'm gonna go with oh crap, I'm mixing my stuff now. I'm gonna go with Silver Surfer. I was really blown away by that book. It really did it for me. Everything else I picked was like, certainly good, but that was the one that got me the most emotional as I was reading. And when a book does that to me, when art affects you, you gotta give it props for that. It's not, it's not that it's just well done. It's that it is profound, and that's something I love. And that's a book where someone says, oh, comic books are just for kids, I can like throw this right at their face, and like force them to read it in that manner.
That's what I would have done to you, Ian, except you're states away, so it just wasn't possible.
Well, I wouldn't claim that comic books are just for kids. How about you?
No, I'm just saying I would have like thrown it in your face, but I couldn't.
Oh,
that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, no, just the second part of the thing you just said, not
maybe
the first
if you
part.
like, I don't know, like got a box and like packed it in there with some kind of spring-loaded system, so that when I open the box, it like shoots directly at me, and maybe add some kind of face tracking device that would like target my face specifically. Maybe, I mean, it's a little elaborate, but if you were really committed, you would have done it this way.
Yeah, I would have. It'd be like that scene in Batman '89 when Vicky Vale opens the box and then the hand comes up, and be like that. So I'm trying to decide my pièce de résistance, and I never thought this would happen. What is going on here? This is wait. I'm like, really serious Batman. And serious and really clever, but with freaking Elmer Fudd, written by the same guy. I guess they're tied. I have to pick one, but like, I guess I'll go with this just because that cliffhanger really got me. And like I said, I love all the thinking I'm doing about this version of Batman psychology, but this was the cleverest thing I've written in a while. What we've learned is that this man's a really good, versatile writer, and he knows what he's doing.
Cotter in the comments says play for Cap.
I just can't do it, folks. I can't pick. Okay, anyway. Well, that is going to be the end of our show. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you're watching live, if you're watching after the fact, either way, hope you enjoyed seeing this live. We may continue to do this way. We're in a Google Hangout anyway, and the last time we did one of these, of course, I've been putting in pictures and stuff, actually editing these, and the last time I couldn't export, so I ended up having to just post the raw file. And I thought, this time we might as well just try it live and see how that goes. And we're not doing a regular live show anyway, so doing some other things here and there live seems to be a thing people are appreciating. So anyway, now we go on to our cupcakes. It's our final thing. And my cupcake is falling apart. I'm looking at my cupcake, and the top came off, and it's real unfortunate. Ian, what kind of cupcake did you get, sir?
I'm a sucker for chocolate, man. So I got a chocolate cupcake. It's got some like white and yellow frosting with some sprinkles on top. I just needed the chocolate. So I got a chocolate cupcake, and my mouth is watering.
Cool. I
also got
a chocolate cupcake. Mine is has like a white chocolate frosting with some chocolate chips.
Nice.
Doesn't it look delightful? And I'm losing my chocolate chips here.
Don't.
But I'm not gonna eat this yet because it's got all this goop on top, and I don't want to bite right into that. But anyway, so I'll try that out here after a while. Anyway, what little I've tasted of it is very tasty. Anyway, well, folks, thanks so much for watching. We sure appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again in a month, or maybe less than a month, but for the next month. And so anyway, we will read some comics and get back to you in a few weeks. Thanks a lot for watching. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Sid Bar 2, and I'm going to eat this cupcake right now.
There he goes. There he goes. He's eating his cupcake. There it is. He's a cupcake-eating fool. There he goes. Anyway, thanks again, folks. We sure appreciate it. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.